Okay.
Thank you so much. So we'll call the meeting to order at 4:32, the meeting of the Cultural Vitality Committee. You should have received a revised agenda in your in an email earlier today that just added an item just before the business arising portion, or sorry, just before the Arts and Culture Assistance Program application review to the business arising. We've added discussion of the review process, partly because the review process itself is not outlined in the cultural policy. So per our previous convention, we have to determine the process that we will use for the review prior to beginning it. Generally a good thing to do before you jump in. So with that, the first item on our agenda is the adoption of minutes. So a reminder for anybody that this can be moved and seconded and voted upon by anyone who was at the previous meeting. If you were not at the previous meeting, please abstain, because you wouldn't know if they were true or not. And do I have a mover for the minutes? Moved by Heather, seconded by Donna. Any discussion? Seeing none, move on. We'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please remain silent. Anybody opposed, please indicate so in the chat, or any abstentions indicate so in the chat for our record keeper, and or you can open your mic and express so. Seeing no opposition, we will move on to the declaration of pecuniary interest. Some of these relate to applications that have come forward to the Arts and Culture Assistance Program. Some have already been noted by Todd. I have a conflict with item 4.1. What will be 1.6 on the agenda, the Summer Moon Festival, because the applicant, the IFC, is a client. Are there any other pecuniary interests to declare? Heather?
Yeah, I noted mine to Todd, so I did not read them or grade them. It was number 10 and number 12, because one of the applicants is also a member of the board of directors of Algoma. So great. I felt I had a conflict there.
For sure. Any other conflicts to declare, Larry?
I have a conflict with item 4.13.
Great. The box office suit community. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Larry. Any other conflicts?
Yeah,
Donna?
Oh,
sorry.
Sorry. I had the same conflict as Larry.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. Donna?
I feel it's important for me to declare a conflict on all of the applications, simply because the Algoma Fall Festival, for which I work, or the Algoma Arts Festival Association, for which I work, will be applying in the next winter intake coming up in January, and I think it's important that that I just abstain from being part of this discussion.
Fair enough. Completely understand. And thanks for that, Donna. Miranda, I saw your hand up earlier as well.
Yep, so just declaring item 4.1.4 as well as 4.1.6.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to express, both for our viewers at home and for our new member, who I'd like to take the moment to welcome, Jordan Barone, who's been appointed by the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council as MIAC's representative on the Cultural Vitality Committee. First of all, welcome. We're so glad to have you with us. We have a pretty packed agenda, so maybe at the end of the evening we can do a bit more of a social connection. But the reason that the purpose of these declarations are really to indicate applicants to this program whom each of us have some sort of connection, whether we are the applicant or we are a member of an organization that has applied, or if we stand to benefit materially from any relationship with an applicant. So what we do in this process of declaration of pecuniary interest is essentially to remove ourselves from the discussion of those files so that we are not biasing the process and we can ensure a fair process for all applicants. So the procedure is essentially on those items for which you have declared a conflict. You will pop off the call and once we have completed the discussion of that file, then we will send you a message. So if you do pop off the call, stay by your computer so that or a phone, whichever, let us know what is the best way to get a hold of you to let you know when to come back into the meeting. All right, moving along. We have the, oh, sorry, Ton?
Did Andrea have any conflicts?
Oh, thank you for pointing out. So Andrea's just joined us on the call. Andrew, we're just at the part of the agenda of declaration of pecuniary interest. So if you have any conflicts with any...
Yep, I don't think I did.
Great.
Yep, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for pointing that out, Todd. All right, so we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. As I mentioned, there's a revision earlier this morning. Thank you, Todd, for being so flexible when I pointed that out. So I greatly appreciate that. So under business of writing, the first item is discussion of the process. All right, is there a mover for the adoption of the agenda? Anybody? Donna will move, seconded by Miranda.
I'll move it if I can, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't declare a conflict on the agenda, so we're good.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, great. All those in favor, please remain silent. Anybody opposed, please indicate so in the chat or open your mic to express so.
Sorry, Sean, who is the seconder on that?
Miranda. Yep. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. So Todd, just a point of order, I guess. Some people are indicating in the chat how best to get a hold of them when they need to leave due to conflicts. All right, so I want to provide a little bit of an overview of, oh, and sorry, Todd, I don't mean to put that all on you. If you're able to contact people to let them know, that's great. Otherwise, I can also multitask.
Kathy and I had discussed this earlier since I'm taking notes. Kathy, if you wouldn't mind kind of letting people know when they're are ready to come back in. Thank you, Kathy.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much. All right, so the first item under business arising is discussion of the Arts and Culture Assistance Program application, deliberation, and assessment. I wanted to flag some things that were new from last year. Those of you who are with the committee last year, we used the assessment criteria that was developed for this new program, but with the preceding cultural financial assistance grant application. So you'll recognize that the grant application is new this year. This has unique questions and some new practical considerations. I know we'll have some feedback on this, but remember that this is to be expected. This is part of the process of developing a new program. And anytime you change a process that hasn't changed for 20 years, you can expect that there's going to be some unforeseen issues that we only learn about through the exercise of the process. So while I know we will be eager to provide input, we can do so in a structured discussion at our next meeting so that we have time to reflect after our deliberations today. So as you have thoughts, you may have already documented them, feel free, or if new ones come to you, please do jot them down because we will be coming back to this for further discussion. Additionally, from last year, we now have a fund of over $104,000. So staff have allotted 75% of that. So that's where you get the number of 79,400 for discussion and potential allotment in this round of intakes, with the remaining 26,000 or so being allotted at the later round of intakes that will take place in 2022. The distribution can be changed, but this is how the funding is currently presented. There are also 6 streams. So small projects, large projects, community events, operational, major celebrations, and cultural diversity. Note that there are no separate funds or allotments for these streams. So it's all coming from the same pot. The classification is there, however, so that at this stage we can consider the information in our deliberations and consider whether it has been equitably allocated and so forth. Now, in terms of the timing, you may have also noticed some of the discussions around the scheduling of the meeting. This was due to the fact that tonight would have been the cutoff, well, is the cutoff for budget items going to the December budget meeting for council. That said, the investment in this fund has already been approved by council, and if the deliberations take longer than scheduled, the funding is still available. However, and I think Brent may be able to comment on this, but payments may be delayed compared to if they were approved tonight versus at a later date. But nonetheless, the purpose, of course, here is of having a peer assessment to ensure a fair and impartial review of the applications with the insight of those who have been in the shoes of the applicants. So remember also that all applicants are entitled to our attention and consideration. Brent, did you want to speak to that question of timing?
Sure, thanks, Sean. Appreciate that. So if you were to go and approve the distribution tonight, the council report would go into our process of approval tomorrow and go forward on November, the next meeting in November. I believe it's the 29th. I'm just looking back at my calendar right here. 29th, yes, 29th of November. So that's the next council meeting that would come forward. Failing, if there wasn't a decision reached tonight, you'd have to either do 2 things: reconvene a special meeting of the committee, or go to your regular meeting, which is usually the 3rd Wednesday in December would be the next meeting. And then once you make that decision, it would have to go to the first council meeting in January. And then from there, then the funding would have to go later in January. So if you approve it now, essentially you can give money January 1st, right to the successful proponents, which would be ideal for them to start right away. If you don't, then they'd have to wait to that meeting in January, and then following that meeting, then money could be distributed because the money is for 2022. So even if you did approve it tonight, they can't access it now because it has to be approved by council on December 6th and 7th. So everyone, hopefully that makes things clear as mud, hopefully, on that process. And so it'd be great if you could approve everything tonight to make sure that individuals have money on the first, the organization. If not, it'd be a bit delayed into in the first bit of January.
Thanks very much, Brent. Are there any questions related to this so far? I mean, we will come back to a decision around, well, I should say discussions around process. We haven't fully concluded that discussion, but if there were any specific questions related to the question of the timing. I see none. Okay, so I'll just continue. So the cultural policy doesn't provide, as I mentioned, for an explicit process of how we deliberate and come to an agreement about the applications. We have the assessment criteria, which we have all used to score applications, but we don't have an explicit process for how differences of opinion are considered. Last year, we employed a process modeled on what has been in use by the Ontario Arts Council, whereby each member would take turns introducing an application and their assessment, and then discussion would progress with each member providing any additional thoughts. At the end of the discussions, financial amounts were discussed and allotted for each applicant. Now, similar to the Ontario Arts Council, however, this process is not rigidly applied for each jury, but rather the juries have the freedom to determine certain aspects of their processes, including whether or not to allow partial awards. So, for instance, awarding less than the requested funds, or sticking to a rule of, if they requested $7,300, they either get that amount or nothing. Another example might be whether to set a minimum score threshold, or whether to allot the entire available funds, or whether to defer them to a later intake. This is something that the Ontario Arts Council does because they also have what we call double intakes for the same programs, where they have one in either the early or in later parts of the year. So sometimes, generally, I think they split the pot 50-50, but a session at the beginning of the year can borrow or essentially move more of the funds up. But those at the end of the year are left with ultimately what was remaining. You can also move funds from your early allotment if you don't use all of it to that next section. Anyhow, so you can understand that there are a lot of questions to answer before we wade into this discussion. So I have crafted 6 questions that I'm going to ask you. We'll go one by one through the committee members, just to get your sense, and we'll craft the process that way. And I'll direct who is to respond based on order of where I see your image. Because anyway, I'll keep it quick, or not rushed, but moving forward. Okay, so the first is related to questions around the process for deliberation. Do you wish for the discussions to occur in camera? So in camera refers to being essentially confidential. When a committee moves in camera, the live stream would stop, for instance. Any guests would not be able to sit in on the in-camera discussions. There are pluses and minuses with either choice. Once resolutions are completed in camera, they do have to be approved again in open session. So just a note on that process. So I'll just go in order of who I see. Heather, what are your thoughts?
I would prefer that we do the applications, like reading them out in the scoring in camera, because I think we all have different thoughts and opinions on all of these things. And as I guess if we have an assessment of a threshold or something, if we have processes in place, I don't think those discussions should be made public. I think we should just make the decisions of what we made public. That's my comfort level.
Fair, absolutely, thank you. And sorry, when I am giving you affirmative things, it's just to say that I heard you. I'm just chairing this, I'm not weighing it. Miranda, thoughts?
I support taking those discussions in camera.
All right, thank you. Alicia?
I agree. In camera, please.
Great. Larry? Oh, yes, you're on mute, sorry.
I would prefer in camera.
In camera, great. Andrea?
Yep, I prefer that as well. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Well, we have a plurality, but I'll just continue going. Jordan, do you have a preference?
Actually, in terms of the ACAP process, I spoke to Todd about this, and I actually I took myself out of the process because I felt as though I didn't
fair
have
enough.
enough information because I haven't attended past meetings. So I kind of read up on it, but I'll save my opinion because I feel like it's
Fair
not
enough.
informed.
I completely understand that stance. Know that regardless of the decision about in camera or not, you are a committee member, so you can be a fly on the wall to observe the process. That was something that others did at the first round that we did last year as well. And Councillor Hilsinger.
I think it's prudent to go in camera. I think it's the best way for people to be frank and fair.
Great. All right. So we'll that's that. We will go in camera once we move on to item 4.1.2. Or sorry, 4.2. All right. Do you wish to have a rotating discussion lead where we alternate between each of those, as we did last time, for those of you that were here, where I'll ask somebody to lead our discussion, provide information about their scoring, or not necessarily their scoring, but their qualitative assessments. Or would you prefer a different approach or have other ideas? We'll go in the same order. Heather.
Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I'm fine with that approach. I think we've done something like that. Like we did that last year. I think in the past we just opened it up to here's the application, what were people's thoughts, and people could just speak up. I'm okay with the going around table. It gives everybody a chance to like lead the conversation.
Great. Miranda.
I like the rotating lead format.
Great. Alicia.
I don't, but that's just me.
Okay. No, it's fine. This is a collective process of
I'm
determining.
okay with either way. Usually I like to my preferred stance is to listen in and to add when I have something relevant that hasn't been covered. But
okay. Great. Andrea.
Yeah, I don't know how good of a job I'd be able to do at leading a discussion on any one of the applicants at this moment. I'm tending a fire for John, so
of course.
I don't have I've got my spreadsheet with the scoring, but I'm not in the right space to like present fairly for one of the applicants.
I completely understand.
I'm fine with whichever people choose to do, but I'm sort of like Alicia. I'd rather just speak up if I have relevant additions.
Fair enough. For those of you that haven't seen the news today, the fire that Andrea is tending to is for John LaFord, who passed away early this morning or last night, which is a travesty or a huge loss for our community. So thank you for doing that work, Andrea, and maybe we can speak to that later. Larry.
Well, I'm not prepared for this. I didn't know. Maybe I missed something in some of the many emails I got, but I don't have it open. I had great difficulty. Todd knows. It may just be me, but I think it was an inconsistency of devices, Apple and non-Apple. And I noticed I put comments in the evaluations that I put in, and I see the conflicts are gone. But the comments are gone, at least in my copy when I open it up tonight. So okay. I'd have to go back and find the original email, and I probably would remember if I saw the description, but I'm not equipped. If I'd known ahead of time and it would have been assigned, I'd have done it happily.
Oh, and by rotating lead, I just mean initiating discussion. Yeah, that's all. Councillor Hilsinger.
I've used that rotating, I guess if you would call it like presentation, speaking to a summary of what you observed in the application I've done it with the OAC before, and then, giving some basic comments. I found that worked really well. So I would be supportive of that. I do understand, however, that some people may not be, but perhaps in this time we could try it out, and next time people could be better prepared because we are better prepared.
Yeah, and I think we can go kind of halfway on this, in the sense of those who have expressed a desire to do the rotation, we can alternate, and then others can chime in as they prefer to add comment. All right, the next question is, do you want to prioritize discussion of applications for events or programs beginning before the next intake to arrive at a conclusion of some funding tonight? Or do you prefer that all applicants be considered in the same round of discussions, even if it means having another meeting to complete the process? We'll go in reverse order. Donna.
I'm not part of that, so I'll just.
Right, of course.
Bye.
Fair enough. Larry.
Me, you're talking to?
That's right.
Can I pick any one of them?
Well, what I'm asking is if you prefer.
I think I could do the 30 mixed genre concerts and workshops.
Sure. The question I'm asking now is do you prefer that we have an option of either prioritizing some that are a bit more, that are beginning earlier to award funding tonight, or try to at least, or do you prefer that even if we have to meet again, we do all of them together?
Well, I was wondering whether we might be able to take an approach. We've got 13,000. We're $13,258 over, and I have no qualms with the suggestions that have been made as to what each group gets. And I was just wondering if we could reduce each one fairly, so that come at it that direction.
All right. Andrew, I'm going to skip you unless you want me to pause with you, just out of respect for where you are right now. If that's okay, do nothing, and if you want me to.
Sorry, I missed the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to just skip over calling on you from now on, out of respect for where you are right now. And
sure, that sounds great if that's okay.
Okay, great, no problem. Alicia.
I don't really have a preference in this way.
Sure. Miranda.
I'm leaning towards looking at them all at the same time.
Great. Heather.
Looking at them all at the same time.
All right, so it looks like there's a combination of not a preference, but generally leaning towards looking at them all at the same time. There's a question about looking at the funding allotments. That relates to my next question. So do you wish to discuss scoring and recommended funding one by one, or separately with recommended funding being discussed at the end? We'll switch it up again. Heather.
I think last year we did it one by one as we went through the applications, and then at the end we looked to see where we were at. And then I think we went from there to make adjustments, because we were last year we were trying to stick to the actual budget to make sure we didn't go over. So I'm okay with doing it all at once and then having a follow-up at the end. So
Great. Miranda.
I'm happy to score first and a lot later.
Okay. Alicia.
Yep, the same, please.
Great. Larry.
The same.
Great. Okay, we will do that. That's unanimous then. Do you wish to establish a minimum scoring threshold? So for instance, the highest mark that can be achieved is out of 15? Or would you prefer to have, not to have like a threshold under which, nobody gets, applications that fall below that threshold don't get funding, and rather just consider that relationally based on where different applicants fall in the scoring process. Let's see, Larry, I'm not sure if I explained that well, but do you have a preference?
I don't really.
Okay.
That doesn't help you.
No, that's fine. That's, hey, one might emerge. Alicia.
I'm on the fence here, but I don't know. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. Miranda.
I'd be interested in setting a threshold.
All right. And Heather.
Actually, I would like to set a threshold.
Great. Okay, so with that, maybe we'll enter into discussion about what that threshold may be. Miranda and Heather, since you've both expressed what that level is, you've both expressed a desire for this, what do you envision for an acceptable minimum threshold? And we'll start with Heather. Oh, sorry, Miranda.
I was gonna say, you can let actually Miranda go first.
Sorry.
I'm wondering if anything that scores at less than a 7. Yeah, that's just under the halfway.
Right, so that would be less than 50%. Great, Heather.
Yeah, I think 7 would actually be good, because I mean, just based on my thoughts and comments that I said, I had just felt that like we needed to set one, just because some applications I felt, are, there's definitely a scale. Like when you're grading them, you feel in your head when you're thinking and you're going through the process, you're already doing that. You know what's, meeting all the criteria, et cetera, and ones that are just not meeting that mark. So yeah, I'd say 7 is
7. Alicia, you expressed no original preference, but the 7, is that acceptable to you, or do you have another idea?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
7, great. And Larry, your thoughts?
Well, if you're going to have a threshold, that's as good as any threshold.
Our threshold is 7 then. Thank you very much. And then last question, thank you for bearing with me throughout this laying of the terrain here. Do you wish to allot the recommended 79,400 in this deliberation, or do you wish to maybe transfer a greater portion to the next intake, or do you want to hold off on that decision until after we see how much money is actually available based on the requests that exceed that threshold? Larry, do you have a thought on that?
Did we represent anything to the public as to how much was available this time?
I don't know. Todd, do you have an answer for that? Like,
in the guidelines, it says the whole amount for the complete funding out of 104.5, and then it says it's divided up 75 and 25 for each. The fall intake is 75, the second intake is 25.
Okay, so there is an understanding of this division of the allotment on the
So I think we should stick as close to that as we can.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Alicia.
I think I'd like to hold off till the end.
Okay. Miranda.
Hold off till the end.
Great. Heather.
same.
Great. Okay. So we'll hold off for further discussion about that till the end. All right. With that, we have completed 4.1. Let's move on to 4.2. Although before that, I just want to express, Jordan, thank you for bearing with us through that. If you do have any thoughts, do feel free to share them, of course, even if I'm not singling you out. All right. 4.2, the beginning of the assessment process, could I receive a motion from the floor to move into camera for these discussions? Moved by Alicia, seconded by Miranda. All those in favor, please remain silent. All those opposed, please indicate so in the chat, or if your camera's on, you can raise your hand or open your mic. All right, we will move into camera. So the motion carries. Todd, we can, Donna has indicated that she's going to step out of the deliberations now, and she's indicated a conflict. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that we have some guests with us as well. First of all, my apologies for not acknowledging you earlier. Hi, David. It's really nice to see you. Well, I guess I can't see you. It's nice to see your black square.
Sorry, Sean. I'm interested in rejoining if you do have a public session to pass any motions subsequently.
Wonderful.
So do you camp me or how?
Could you put the method that's best, the best way to get a hold of you in the chat, and then Kathy will notify you if we have a motion that comes out of the in-camera. My hunch is this will probably take more than our meeting tonight. That's just a hunch though, but if we do have, we'll let you know either way.
Okay, Sean, I don't know that I have access to the chat, but if I could just leave you with a phone number to text or phone, 705, sorry, 971 4770. And if I could be so bold, for future reference, Mr. Chair, you do have to provide a general reason for an in-camera meeting, although I'm totally conceding that it exists. And but normally speaking, you'd be referring to something out of the Municipal Act, but we'll watch for that next time.
Thank you so much, and that's a very good point, and I'll make sure that that we're more prepared for that in our next deliberation. So thank you.
And I will leave now then. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. All right. All right. So the remaining members are those who have not declared a conflict on all of the applicants, members of the committee, and staff who are here to provide logistical support or to answer direct questions. So before we move into the discussions, I did just want to make a note that, as we deliberate, please do remember that each of the applicants has invested their time and their best effort into their submissions. So regardless as to whether their applications are ultimately funded, they deserve our respect and our gratitude for their efforts to advance the arts, culture, and heritage sector within our community. So it's perfectly normal to have questions about an application, and it's our duty to provide fair critique. But we do so in a respectful manner, assessing the applications on the information that we have before us and free of speculation and hearsay. So though we're in a small city, and we undoubtedly know many of the applicants, we should limit our consideration to the facts that are in front of us in the applications, especially to protect the fairness of the process for less established applicants. All right, so with that, we will begin our rotation. And Larry, you had indicated an interest in maybe beginning the discussion around the first applicant. Oh, sorry, Miranda, you had a point of...
Just raising the fact that since we're in camera, do we turn off YouTube?
Oh, yes, it should be.
Yes, that was my question.